Have you ever heard of a criminal so clever, so audacious, that an entire nation stood paralyzed in fear? A mastermind who taunted police, threatened children, and vanished without a trace? This is the story of Japan's most baffling, unsolved case. Before we dive in, I want to know, where are you watching from? What city? What country? Drop it in the comments because this story transcends borders, and I'm curious how far this mystery has reached. March 18th, 1984. Osaka, Japan. Two men wearing monster masks burst into the home of Katsuhisa Azaki, the president of Glico Confectionery Company. Picture this. It's evening, the family is together, and suddenly their world explodes into chaos. The kidnappers bound and gagged Azaki's wife and daughter with tape, leaving them helpless on the floor. Then they shoved Azaki himself into the trunk of a car and drove off into the night. The ransom demand? 100 million yen and 100 kilograms of gold bars. But here's where it gets strange. 3 days later, Azaki escaped. He literally kicked his way out of a warehouse where he was being held. The kidnappers had grown careless, maybe even confident. When police arrived at the scene, they found something unsettling. The warehouse was clean, methodical, prepared. These weren't amateur thugs. These were professionals. And this was only the beginning of a nightmare that would consume Japan for the next 2 years. Within days of Azaki's escape, anonymous letters began arriving at major newspapers and police stations across Japan. The writer called himself the Monster with 21 Faces, a reference to a villain from a popular Japanese detective novel. The letters were typed, mocking, and terrifyingly intelligent. They ridiculed the police, calling them incompetent. They promised more action, and they delivered. Have you ever received a threatening message that made your blood run cold? Imagine an entire country feeling that way. The monster didn't just threaten, he acted with precision. He announced that Glico products on store shelves had been poisoned with cyanide. Panic erupted. Stores pulled every Glico product immediately. Parents checked their children's candy with trembling hands. The company lost billions of yen. But when authorities tested the products, they found the claims were true. Packages had been injected with deadly poison and placed back on shelves in multiple stores. This wasn't a bluff. This was real terror. Think about the psychology here. What kind of mind operates this way? The monster wasn't motivated by money alone. Glico never paid the ransom. This was about power, control, and humiliation. The letters continued, each one more brazen than the last. They contained insider details only the kidnappers would know, proving their authenticity. One letter even contained a photograph of the kidnapped executive, bound and gagged, to remove any doubt. The monster was playing a game with the entire nation, and he was winning. Then the attacks escalated beyond Glico. The monster targeted other major food companies: Morinaga, House Foods, Fujiya. Each time, the pattern repeated. Threatening letters, poisoned products, public panic. The Tokyo Metropolitan Police formed a task force of over 130,000 officers, one of the largest in Japanese history. They investigated 12,000 people. They followed countless leads, and they found nothing. 0 arrests. 0 solid suspects. Can you imagine the frustration, the shame? An entire police force rendered helpless. The letters became increasingly theatrical. One described exactly how the crimes were committed, almost like a confession, but with no useful evidence. Another letter mocked a specific police superintendent by name, predicting he would fail to catch them. The tone was playful, arrogant, intelligent. Linguistic experts analyzed the writing style, noting it was formal, educated, possibly written by someone with military or corporate experience. But these clues led nowhere. Every door opened to another dead end. Now let me ask you something. What would you do if you were leading this investigation? You have minimal evidence, a criminal who seems to predict your every move, and a public losing faith in your ability to protect them. The pressure was unimaginable. Police worked around the clock. Officers went months without proper sleep. Families of investigators received threatening calls. Some officers had nervous breakdowns. The psychological toll was as devastating as the crimes themselves. Here's a chilling detail. The monster never made a single mistake. Not one fingerprint. Not one useful witness description. Surveillance footage showed masked figures, always obscured. Handwriting analysis on the typed letters revealed nothing. Even the poison used was untraceable, purchased through methods that left no paper trail. This level of sophistication suggested either someone with law enforcement training or someone who had studied police procedures extensively. Or perhaps a group working together with complementary skills. Let's talk about the evidence, or rather, the lack of it. Police found the warehouse where Ezeki was held, but it had been wiped clean. They found abandoned cars used in the crimes, but they were stolen and sanitized. Forensic teams scoured every surface for DNA, but remember, this was 1984. DNA profiling was still in its infancy. The technology we rely on today simply didn't exist. The monster operated in a perfect storm of criminal opportunity and technological limitation. The media coverage was relentless. Every newspaper, every television station covered the story daily. The monster with 21 faces became a household name, a boogeyman that parents invoked to scare children into obedience. Public trust in authority collapsed. Sales of confectionery products plummeted nationwide. The economic impact reached into the billions. And through it all, the monster remained silent, watching, waiting, perhaps even enjoying the chaos he had created. Does this remind you of any modern criminals who crave attention? Then, on August 12, 1985, something unexpected happened. The monster sent a final letter to media outlets. It read in part, "We forgive Glico, we've decided to call it quits." Just like that, the crime stopped. No explanation. No final demand. No arrests. The task force continued investigating for years, but the trail had gone completely cold. It was as if the monster had simply evaporated into the air, leaving behind only questions and trauma. But the story has a darker epilogue. The police superintendent who was mocked by name in one of the letters, his name was Shoshi Yamamoto. He couldn't let it go. The failure haunted him. On August 12, 1985, exactly 1 year after the final letter, Yamamoto's body was found. He had committed suicide, leaving a note apologizing for his inability to solve the case. His death sent shockwaves through Japan. It wasn't just a professional failure. It was a personal tragedy born from the weight of unsolved horror. Now here's what makes this case so fascinating from an investigative standpoint. The strategy. The monster used corporate terrorism as a weapon. He understood that modern society's weakness isn't physical infrastructure, it's public trust. By targeting food products that children consume, he struck at the most primal fear, the safety of our families. His tactics were psychological warfare. He didn't need to poison millions of products. He just needed to poison public confidence. And he succeeded spectacularly. Let's examine the tactical execution. The kidnapping itself was brazen but not unusual. What set this apart was what came after. The monster demonstrated patience, discipline, and adaptability. When the ransom wasn't paid, he pivoted immediately to product contamination. When one company tightened security, he moved to another. He communicated through letters to maintain control of the narrative. He used media as an amplifier. Every action was calculated to maximize impact while minimizing risk. This is textbook asymmetric warfare applied to criminal enterprise. Think about the coordination required. Multiple companies were targeted simultaneously across different cities. Products were contaminated and returned to shelves without detection. Letters were mailed from different locations. This wasn't one person working alone in a basement. This required a team with resources, planning, and nerves of steel. Some investigators believed it might have been a group of disgruntled former employees with insider knowledge of the food industry. Others suspected organized crime. No theory was ever proven. The evidence, such as it was, pointed in every direction and nowhere at once. Eyewitnesses described different heights, builds, and ages for the masked figures. Some said they moved like young men, others said they seemed middle-aged. The cars used were common models, easily stolen, impossible to trace. The typewriters used for the letters were standard office models available anywhere. Even the language in the letters was deliberately ambiguous, mixing formal and informal speech patterns to obscure the writer's background. Here's something that keeps true crime analysts awake at night. Statistically, most criminals eventually make a mistake. They get overconfident, they leave evidence, someone in their circle talks. But the monster with 21 faces never did. They committed multiple serious crimes over 18 months, taunted law enforcement relentlessly, and then simply stopped. And when they stopped, they disappeared so completely that no credible suspect has ever been publicly identified. The case officially remains open, but it's been 40 years. Most investigators from the original task force have retired or passed away. So what happened to the monster with 21 faces? There are theories, of course. Some believe the group disbanded after achieving their goal of humiliating police and corporations. Others think someone within the group died or was arrested for an unrelated crime, causing the operation to collapse. A darker theory suggests they're still out there, older now, living normal lives, carrying the secret to their graves. One particularly intriguing hypothesis is that they were corporate insiders who used the crimes to manipulate stock prices and profit from the chaos they created. There's also the possibility we can't ignore. Maybe they were caught, but never prosecuted. Maybe someone with power or influence was involved, and the case was quietly buried to avoid scandal. Japan in the 1980s was experiencing rapid economic growth and tremendous national pride. The idea that such crimes could go unsolved was deeply embarrassing. Some researchers believe evidence exists in sealed files, waiting for someone brave enough to reopen old wounds. But this is speculation, not fact. The truth is, we simply don't know. What we do know is the impact. The monster with 21 faces changed how Japan handles food safety, corporate security, and crisis communication. New laws were passed. Security protocols were revolutionized. The case became a case study in criminology programs worldwide. It demonstrated how a small group with intelligence and determination could hold an entire nation hostage without firing a single shot. It exposed vulnerabilities in systems we assumed were secure, and it left a permanent scar on Japan's collective psyche. Let me ask you again, where are you from? Have you heard about this case before? Does your country have similar unsolved mysteries that haunt the public consciousness? I want to hear your thoughts in the comments because these stories connect us across cultures. They remind us that evil can be banal, clever, and disturbingly human. The monster with 21 faces wasn't a supernatural entity. It was people, just people who made calculated choices that destroyed lives and escaped justice. The human element here is what truly haunts me. Behind every threatening letter was someone typing those words, choosing that phrasing, sealing that envelope. Behind every poison product was someone's hands carefully injecting cyanide into candy that children would eat. These weren't abstract acts. They were deliberate attempts to cause fear, suffering, and death. And somewhere those individuals might still wake up every morning, look in the mirror, and live with what they've done. Or perhaps they feel nothing at all. That's the mystery within the mystery. What can we learn from this? From an investigative standpoint, the case highlights the importance of forensic technology. If this crime happened today, surveillance cameras would be everywhere. Digital communications would leave traces. DNA evidence would be more easily recovered and analyzed. But it also reminds us that human intelligence and cunning can still outmaneuver even sophisticated systems. The monster succeeded because they understood human psychology, institutional weaknesses, and how to exploit both. That's a timeless truth about crime that no technology can fully eliminate. If you were the investigator, what would you have done differently? Would you have negotiated with the kidnappers? Paid the ransom to buy time? Gone public with more information to generate tips? Or would you have kept everything classified to prevent copycats? These are the impossible questions that haunted the task force. Every decision carried enormous risk. Every path forward seemed to lead to failure. And in the end, every choice they made was second-guessed by a nation desperate for answers and justice. The statute of limitations for most of the crimes has now expired. Even if someone confessed today, prosecution would be difficult or impossible. This means the monster with 21 faces has achieved something rare in criminal history. They got away with it completely. They terrorized a nation, destroyed businesses, contributed to a man's death, and then vanished into legend. They became the nightmare that proves sometimes the bad guys win. Sometimes there is no justice, no closure, no satisfying conclusion. Sometimes there's just silence and unanswered questions. But here's what I believe. Someone knows the truth. Maybe it's a family member who noticed odd behavior during those years. Maybe it's a friend who was told something in confidence. Maybe it's an elderly person carrying guilt, wondering if they should speak before they die. Secrets this big rarely stay buried forever. Someone somewhere knows what happened. And maybe, just maybe they're watching this right now, deciding whether 40 years of silence is enough. If that's you, the world is still waiting. Japan is still waiting. The families affected are still waiting. This case teaches us that evidence isn't just physical, it's psychological, strategic, tactical. The monster left behind a blueprint of methodical crime that has been studied by law enforcement and criminals alike. They showed how to exploit fear, how to manipulate media, how to stay invisible while remaining loudly present. They understood that power doesn't come from violence alone, but from the threat of violence, carefully managed and perpetually renewed. They were students of human nature, and they earned a terrible kind of mastery. So where does this leave us? With a mystery that defined an era and continues to fascinate decades later, with questions that may never be answered, with a reminder that the line between order and chaos is thinner than we'd like to believe. The monster with 21 faces proved that a small group with determination and intelligence could challenge an entire society and win. They remain out there in shadow and myth, a cautionary tale about the limits of justice and the persistence of evil. Before we end, I want to hear from you one more time. What do you think happened? Do you believe they're still alive? Do you think someone will eventually confess? Or is this one of those mysteries that will remain forever unsolved, haunting us with its incompleteness? Share your theories in the comments. And if you found this story as gripping as I did, share this with someone who loves true crime. These stories matter not because they entertain us, but because they teach us, challenge us, and remind us that reality can be stranger and darker than any fiction we imagine. Thank you for listening, and remember, sometimes the most terrifying monsters are the ones that look just like us.